In 2021, the UN Secretary-General, Antonio Guterres, issued a press release saying that the most recent report of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change was a code red for humanity. The alarm bells are deafening and the evidence is irrefutable. Global heating is affecting every region on Earth, with many of the changes becoming irreversible. In 2020, as the first waves of the COVID-19 pandemic broke across the planet, the OECD observed that for young people, and especially for vulnerable youth, the COVID-19 crisis poses considerable risks in terms of their education, training and employment, and health and well-being. These are some of the global realities that are shaping the futures of today's young people and the generations to come. And in places like Geelong, young people's opportunities have also been reshaped over the last 4 decades by processes of deindustrialisation and globalisation. What then do Geelong's young people make of the futures that they imagine await them?
I guess that's right. Sort of don't feel it doesn't look like you're being able to play. It's not would be nice. However,
From some of the most uncertain depths of the pandemic, and as communities emerge from those dark days, more than 40 young people in Geelong spoke with us on multiple occasions about their hopes and fears for their futures. For many of these young people, futures looked uncertain and provoked anxiety about what was not being done by adults and their institutions. In his book, Hope Without Optimism, Terry Eagleton makes a distinction between optimism and hope. It is easy, given the challenges that we face, to be pessimistic, or like Pollyanna, to remain optimistic. But in thinking about our present and our futures, it might be more useful to imagine what hope might mean and what it might offer young people as they imagine their futures. As Eagleton says, true hope is needed most when the situation is at its darkest, a state of extremity that optimism is generally unwilling to acknowledge.
Trash. The world is trash, and with the current environmental, political, and economic environment, it doesn't look like there'll be much of a change.
Honestly, where to even begin nowadays? Like, it is, excuse my French, it is effed in the A.
The crisis of increased everything has changed everything.
I feel like a lot of young people don't feel like they're heard and that they have the services around them to support them in being heard. Like, there's not a lot of healthcare providers around that are easy to access for young people.
Mental health in Geelong at the moment, especially during COVID-19, isn't great. Throughout my high school life, especially during these past 2 years, I've seen so many people lose their lives.
The climate crisis, I think that's going to really come in soon and kick us right up the arse. I don't know, I think, as you said, young people are very hopeful and optimistic that things will just get better. I don't know why that is. It's probably something to do with social media.
In an essay titled The Capacity to Aspire, Arjun Appadurai suggests that we need to account for the complex ways in which a community's social, cultural and economic circumstances produce our orientations to the future. As he says, but here is the twist with the capacity to aspire. It is not evenly distributed in any society. This means that the better off you are, the more likely you are to be conscious of the links between the more and less immediate objects of aspiration. If we think of aspirations in these ways, then we need to think differently about those young people who might be disengaged or from an area of historical disadvantage, and how we might fix their lack of hope and aspirations. And to think instead about the different family settings, opportunities, abilities and histories that shape the complex settings in which young people live a life and imagine who they are and what they might be and become.
In 5 years' time, I'll see myself working as a qualified mechanical fitter. I like this trade because this has been one of my dreams since I was a little kid. I have a very, very sad past, but that's not the main thing now. The main thing is where I'm going.
Don't rule someone out, no matter what point they're at in their life. Don't rule them out. Give them a shot. Like, just because you can't see their potential, maybe, you have no idea what they are capable of or their worth or what's under this facade that they're presenting. So give people a shot and you will be surprised of what they show you. And just sitting back, watching who they could become, like, that is why I'm so interested in social work. Like, I want to help people grow the same way my stepdad did. And I can't wait to get into the field and start doing that.
I hope I can do what I want to do. I think even if I change my mind, I think I know there's different ways and different pathways I can take to get them. I think schools don't stress that enough as well, because they usually act like VCE and getting an ATAR score is the be-all, end-all, and it honestly doesn't seem that way.
I've definitely had some big influences on my life that I probably wouldn't make it to end of year 12 without. The big one being my mum. But there's been so many people throughout my life that I don't give recognition to that really supported me through my schooling and, like, you know, they kind of influenced my choices on what I wanted to do.
Have a look at the school's sex education curriculum and change it. It's out of date and it needs changing because there is a serious level of stigma about even the smallest things like intimacy.
Young Australians, like their peers around the world, are growing up amid multiple social, economic, political and climate crises. The Lancet, for example, has observed that a young person born in 2006 in Europe will have gone through the Great Recession, austerity, a pandemic with disrupted schooling and social isolation, a cost of living crisis, war in Europe, and a world coming to terms with the magnitude of climate change. During this time, it has become apparent that many young people will carry a heavy burden over the next decade, much as young Australians did in what the Productivity Commission called the lost decade in the aftermath of the global financial crisis. As they emerge from the COVID-19 pandemic and think about the next steps in their lives, what does change and transformation look and feel like for young people in Geelong? How do they imagine the futures that will shape them and which they will create?
So me and my partner, we're pregnant, so she's a few months in, and I'm really, really excited. So that's something that has actually changed the way I see things, and it's made me think of not just myself, but think of a kid that I'm going to have next year.
It's really hard when I talk to people about what my interests are with criminology, because the biggest thing I hear is that, you know, there's no hope for these kids once they've gone down that path. It's lost. There's no coming back. What's done is done, kind of thing. In my opinion, though, these people couldn't be more wrong. I don't think anyone should ever be ruled out as a lost cause.
Me being a graphic designer isn't really a sustainable future for me, to say the least. And I would love to, but I don't see myself doing that anymore. And that's just how the world goes. You know, thoughts change, aspirations change, and, you know, whatever you choose to do, it might change later in life. You know, you might not want to do that anymore.
During that period of time of COVID, I actually also went through gender affirming hormone care. and my brain, my mental health changed, my body changed, my psyche changed, the way that I think changed, my priorities started to change as well, and I became my self-esteem shot all the way up, and I began to have more realistic options and goals and stuff as I got older, and also as I transitioned.
To be honest, my hopes and aspirations have really whittled down to finishing uni and getting a degree in my chosen field. Like, it'd be a major plus if I can do something creative, but I'm not hanging out for that. I'm not focused on that. I'm simply focused on getting a job because, throughout COVID and stuff, we saw so many people losing their jobs and everything, and all working from home, and everything was turned on its head. So my values have shifted to stability, I suppose.
Futures, and how to imagine and name them, have been central to doing this research with young people in Geelong. As Rosie Bradotti suggests, the future is nothing more or less than intergenerational solidarity. We are merely custodians for the present generation of a complex inheritance which we did not create and which is not ours to destroy. The stories told here and elsewhere would not have been possible without the young people who gave voice to their hopes and aspirations in context of profound crisis and uncertainty. While we wish them well in whatever their futures hold, we also need to consider our obligations to them. This project has been concerned with what we might call intergenerational justice. This is a concern that raises difficult questions about what adult generations owe to young people in relation to the futures that are not ours to destroy and which they will inherit and inhabit. So at the end, if true hope is needed most when the situation is at its darkest, how do we respond to young people's demands for a just future?
There is a few problems in the world, but I think there always is going to be problems. There's always going to be problems in the world, but that doesn't mean that they cannot be solved, that they cannot be worked on, and they might not be fixed. They might not be always officially fixed.
No, that's good.
But we can always
work together.
That's what I was saying. We can always work together to make this space, this community for all of us a safe and happy place.
And I think one of the biggest things that we can do to improve our community is things like this, like letting everyone's voices be heard, because obviously everyone has so many good ideas, different ideas about what needs to be done and what can be done, and the only way of making those things happen is being heard and getting those ideas out there. So through systems like this,